You're listening to the Cinemental Podcast.
Shall we begin?
Welcome back to the Cinemental Podcast, where we discuss mental health in cinema, television, and popular culture and how it is portrayed. What do they get right? What do they get wrong? And what should you know about mental health? I'm Jeffrey Jones, and I'm a screenwriter as well as a professor of screenwriting. And I'm joined, as always, by my brother, America's psychiatrist, Dr. Joshua Jones, who, as well as being on Nick Wright's Tears Committee, is a general and forensic psychiatrist.
Jeff, I don't understand that reference.
I know, but you got to be a sports geek to get that one. There's a guy named Nick Wright, and he does this show called First Things First.
All four of you who got that reference?
Exactly. We want you to start your week off right with our podcast. We drop a new episode every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, and then another episode on Thursday morning, same time. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch our hottest and spiciest clips on YouTube. Today, we're talking about Terminator 2: Judgment Day, one of the only sequels widely considered better than the original. It's about a cyborg who goes back in time to protect the future savior of humanity from the war with robots. Josh, tell us what we're going to talk about today.
Well, the first thing we're going to talk about, Jeff, is what an incredible movie this is and why we're talking about it 35 years after its release.
Let's only talk about that. let's just fangirl out to that.
Look, some of you folks are going to be like, I don't want to listen to Terminator 2. That's not my jam. Disagree. You have to listen to this podcast. We are going to tell you why it may be the best movie of all time. We're going to talk about what it's like to be the child of a parent with severe mental illness and how that can be traumatic and how it has been traumatic for many people in the past.
There's a lot of questions I have because there's a fair amount of psychiatry in this episode. And so I want to talk about whether or not they got the psychiatry accurate. We're going to talk a little bit about time travel. I'm going to ask you some questions about time travel. And I'm going to end with a little something I want to say about what's going on right now in the media. Usually we save that for Thursday, but it's very timely. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on with Rachel Zegler and Snow White. I know that has nothing to do with Terminator 2, but it's really a kind of a hot topic right now.
One of the reasons we actually thought about Terminator 2 is it's going to be our entree into our deep dive on Thursday about AI. And I'll be honest, Terminator 2 is one of the first movies in which I started to think about artificial intelligence.
They nailed it in Terminator 3, where it was in the cloud. We had sort of assumed that it was like on a computer, but it's like, no, it can be everywhere. It's going to infect all of our computers. And it's like they nailed that years in advance of where we are now, where we're now dealing with AI. And despite movies like Terminator 2, we're still giving everything away to our robot overlords. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Well, Jeff, Terminator 2 was released in 1991. So at that point, Skynet was on a floppy disk.
That's true. There's nothing less intimidating than a floppy disk.
Hold on. Okay. Let me start to talk with Skynet by dialing up to it.
I want to get that as my ringtone, the old AOL dial-up. I think that would be hilarious. Okay, so if you were living under a rock, or if you weren't born Generation X, the first movie, Cyborg and a human are sent back in time to kill the mother of John Connor to prevent him from being born. This is basically a movie exploring the theme of, would you go back in time to kill baby Hitler? The robot's answer is, yes, they would. The humans win. John Connor is born. 2 more Terminators are sent. Terminator 2. This time, the T-1000, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, is a protective robot, and a liquid metal robot is our new villain, played by Robert Patrick. John Connor and Arnold save John's mother in a role continued by Linda Hamilton, a role reprise, I think is the better word. And the 3 set off to destroy Cyberdyne Systems in an attempt to stop the destruction of humanity at the hands of the robots. The humans basically try and kill the baby robot, baby Hitler.
I know that several of you geeks of my age are furiously typing into Jeff in the comments right now. Let me save you some time. Jeff, Arnold played the T-800. Robert Patrick played the
T-1000.
T-1000. So everybody, you don't have to hit send. You don't have to
Was it the T-800?
Yeah.
I want to look that up.
Okay. We're waiting for Jeff to look up a fact he got wrong that Josh got right.
T-800. Well done, Josh.
You compared the robots coming back in time to kill John Connor to baby Hitler. So you're saying John Connor was the robots as Hitler.
Correct. Yeah. So this has some psychiatry in it, which I think is really interesting.
It does.
When we first meet Linda Hamilton's character, she's doing pull-ups. She's turned into this badass. She obviously believes, rightly so for this film, that machines are coming to, possibly kill her son, and she wants to prevent and prepare her son for the upcoming war. But obviously, the psychiatrists, the us's of the world, think she's crazy. Yeah. And it's not too far afield to think that someone like this might be crazy. They diagnose her with acute schizoaffective disorder. I'm going to guess they mean schizophrenic, and I don't think that they would have called it schizo. You tell me if I'm wrong there. Maybe they would have just used a shorter term. Was that the correct diagnosis for someone who believed what Linda Hamilton believed?
It's schizoaffective disorder, not defective.
I might have just gotten that wrong.
That's fine. It's schizoaffective disorder, not defective disorder. Schizo actually means split. It's the wrong term because, again, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, it's not a split personality. It means more like a split in the brain or a schism in the brain. And then affective means that your moods are way out of control. So basically, schizoaffective disorder is a combination of schizophrenia and either bipolar disorder or major depressive disorder. Now, we as the viewers know, of course, that all these experiences that she had in the Terminator movie of this robot from the future coming to try to kill her, and it had an exoskeleton, et cetera, are all true. She looks incredibly mentally ill. She looks like she has a very crystallized delusion about the end of the world and about these robots. So from that point of view, yeah, you would say that she has a mental illness. And then she has actions based on that mental illness that put her and her son at risk, in danger. And so that's why the authorities step in, end up putting her in the state hospital. And of course, she believes this and cannot be talked out of it. Mm-hmm. And in the real world, that is the definition of a delusion. You cannot talk this person out of this strongly held set of beliefs that other people don't believe. And in the real world, just like what Linda Hamilton's character did, you start to act as if everyone is kind of not out to get you, but disbelieving. And so you do even more and more frantic attempts to get people to believe you. And we see that in people with delusions over and over and over again. It's kind of a trope in movies that you have the person who's assumed to be mentally ill to be the only one who really knows what's going on.
Right.
And wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be, almost salvation for people in our real life who have severe and persistent mental illness, of which schizoaffective disorder is considered? And it's just not the case. And it's movies like this that are really cool, but also highlight the plight of the people who are never going to get the perverse pleasure or the perverse redemption of the T-1000 or T-800 walking through the door and then going, aha, I knew I wasn't crazy all along. This one crystallized delusion doesn't make somebody have schizoaffective disorder. So in order to diagnose her with that, they would have had to have seen some other behaviors, some manic episodes, things like that.
Which I think that they see. I think that they're pretty clear about like what they've seen in the past with her. And is it common and have you seen it where patients will try and convince you that they're not having the delusions that they are having? Because that was something that she does in the movie. She's trying to get to a minimum security hold and see her son. And she's trying to visit. It's been 6 months. I've been doing so good. And you said after 6 months. And she's, obviously like lying and just trying to put on a good show. Is that something that you see often?
Yeah, you actually do see it. There's a clinical term called malingering, basically putting on falsehoods. And we'll very often see this in someone who is trying to feign mental illness to try to get some kind of secondary gain out of it. Like, for instance, somebody who's accused of a crime, try to feign mental illness to excuse them from it. But what we also see is the reverse. We will see people who are very severely mentally ill try to malinger that they don't have symptoms, usually just kind of appear and feel normal, whatever normal is. Or in the case of Linda Hamilton's character, try to get some additional secondary gain. She wants to get to a minimum security prison. So yeah, that's actually very common for a lot of folks with chronic and persistent mental illness.
It's really unfortunate, but like psychiatry is one of those fields that isn't particularly interesting to portray as a hero. And it is interesting to portray as not villainous, but like, oh, you think you know so much. No, you're wrong. I haven't seen a lot of movies where the hero is the psychiatrist telling everybody else they're crazy. I think people have a general desire to not feel crazy. Psychiatrists, I think, are often portrayed as, I think about Silence of the Lambs is another good example where the guy who's looking after Hannibal Lecter is almost as bad as Hannibal Lecter. He's a creepy, creepy doctor. You very rarely see psychiatrists painted in a good light in media. And it's a shame because, there's a lot of, at least I know one. There's a lot of good psychiatrists out there who are doing great work, but I don't think that your job lends itself to being the hero of a film. You guys and dentists, you're not going to see a lot of hero dentists on the silver screen.
People don't usually come to psychiatrists when things are going great.
Right. Oliver Platt in
Chicago Med.
That's the one where it's like, man, if you just want a refresh on what a more accurate depiction, I think, of what a psychiatrist is, or acts, I think probably Oliver Platt in that is probably more accurate.
Well, we can go really, really old school. And actually, one of the portrayals of psychiatrists that made me want to be a psychiatrist was the psychiatrist in MASH, way back in the day. The sitcom MASH. When we were growing up, back in our day, kids, we didn't have streaming. We had 5 television channels that you could get, and one of them was syndicated, played a lot of reruns. I saw MASH, and the psychiatrist in MASH was really great. Really caring, really empathetic, popped up once in a while. And what's one of the reasons why I wanted to become a shrink.
There you go. That and then Arkin from season 2, episode 9 of West Wing. Okay, so Josh, let me ask you this question because I think this one's kind of fun. There's a moment where the psychiatrist gets his comeuppance, where he sees that these guys are actually robots.
Sure.
And he's like, oh, crap. She's been telling the truth the whole time. Cigarette falls out of his mouth because he sees the T-1000, not the T-800, Josh, but the T-1000 walk through the jail doors. And he comes face to face with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who he's seen in photographs. What do you think the threshold is for you to believe in something like time travel and to be proven like, oh, hey, this wasn't a delusion. This person has been right about this thing that's outside of any experience I've ever had. For instance, aliens could be one. Time travel could be one. There's any sorts of delusions. What would it take for you?
It would take a lot. I'm trying to think of a scenario in which that would happen. It would take a lot. I would have to come probably face to face with the T-1000. Now, what's really interesting is that I have had situations that I think most psychiatrists probably have, where patients will get very delusional about things that are grounded in reality. In fact, one of my attendings used to tell me that he used this derogatory term. I'll just repeat it because it's the quote. People go crazy about the things that they're crazy for. And so I have had people who were very, very concerned that the Secret Service are out to get them, only to then be contacted by the Secret Service about said person. That happened to me once. You can also make things kind of come true about your delusions. If you think the Secret Service is out to get you, like this person did, you may call the Secret Service a bunch of times to see if they're out to get you. And then you're on their radar, and then they come and they try to talk to you. So that kind of thing can happen. Now, that's not nearly as fantastical as time travel or aliens or what have you, but people tend to have delusions about things that they're really interested in, or things that are real from their past will fuel delusions or even hallucinations when they go mentally ill.
That was a great answer to a question. It just wasn't an answer to my question. Do you believe in the Terminator if you come face to face with the T-1000 the way that the doctor did? Or would you think there must be something else going on here? Maybe I'm giving into her delusion. Would you explain it away? Even in that extreme context, do you think you would believe in it, or do you think you would explain it away?
In the extreme context is in the movie, I would believe. I'd be like, okay, there's some more here. There's more here than I realize and that I understand. As I get older,
would you still think she was delusional?
Maybe.
Like, would you think that it was like, oh, like you said, like the Secret Service isn't necessarily out to get them. She still could be crazy and built a story around whatever's actually going on. But would you then be like, yep, everything she's told me is true? Or would you still think this is a delusional person and I don't have all the facts yet?
Well, if you think about what we know about Linda Hamilton's character in Terminator 2, she took that information that the world was going to end, that she was going to carry the salvation, and did kind of some really unusual things with it, right? She decided to become basically a mercenary and
freedom fighter,
all
this
and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know if that's really a sane reaction to insane information. You bring up really good points. There was more that got her psychiatrically hospitalized than a belief in the Terminator.
Right. Probably some PTSD, I would imagine.
Sure.
And a lot of then what she was doing was trying to process the awful thing that had happened, and yes, she believes it's going to happen, and it is, but she still goes to the extreme, I'm assuming, as a way to deal with some of that trauma.
To deal with the trauma, to cope with what she thought was coming, and to, in her mind, protect her kid, which perversely ended up putting him in more danger, having him be exposed to freedom fighters, to gun running, to things like that. And then we see that the John Connor character is removed from his mom. She's in state hospital. He bounces around to different foster families, which highlights the plight of some children who are the offspring of chronically and persistently mentally ill folks who can't find their way to stay out of hospitals, can't find their way to stay in their treatment regimen that helps them reduce their symptoms. And for lots and lots of those kids, that ends up being a pretty significant trauma unto itself. They don't end up having the connections and the attachments to their parents, to their mentally ill parent, that many folks without mentally parents end up having. They don't have the stability. They've already been handed a genetic load that predisposes them to mental illness later in life.
Right.
And then they're trying to be raised by folks who are also quite mentally ill.
So what do we do? What do we do with those with kids of people who are mentally ill and in and out of hospitals?
We are doing some things. There is a lot more attention being paid to what are called ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences.
I don't like that acronym. Adverse child experiences, ACEs. ACEs for you. You're an ace.
Jeff, on behalf of all science, I apologize.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We are screening kids for ACEs, like, for instance, at well child checks, and then providing the guardians with referrals, resources, information on how to help kids build resiliency. We are identifying mental illness earlier and earlier, and especially what we call the prodrome of psychotic disorders earlier and earlier, and getting young adults or kids who are having their first break into more evidence-based first break programs. And to help adults, we have a much better understanding of what it takes to manage schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder, not just with medication, but with therapy and other supports, to try to help them be the parents that they really, truly, honest to God, do want to be, and help keep their kids with them in a safe and stable environment. So there are advances that are happening incrementally and slowly at the pace that science as well as social intervention happens.
Yeah, science, but also I'm sure there's got to be some business in there. And I'm sure it's got to be hard to get those resources if you're denied by insurance.
It's hard to get those resources. And the other really interesting thing is that our medications to treat psychotic illnesses such as schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder haven't really taken a leap forward in several decades. We know a little bit more how to use them more effectively, when to start to treat people with a prodromal psychotic disorder, how to help people stay on their medications, what other kind of interventions and resources to help direct towards people to help them manage their psychotic illness. But we haven't taken a giant leap forward in terms of medications that are effective.
What do you think is getting in the way?
It's really hard to come up with a medication that fixes a neural network. And that's what
neural network.
Neural network. It's like Skynet.
Digital processing.
Mental illnesses are alterations, changes, defects in the neural network, not just the site in the brain, not just a specific neurotransmitter. There's not a chemical imbalance. It's a defect in the neural network.
What do doctors such as yourself need in order to study this more effectively?
Better computer models of the brain. Because
how do we get that?
Well, Jeff, probably through AI. AI is helping us create better neural networks.
I don't actually believe I'm talking to my brother. I think that something has taken over his screen. I think I'm looking at an AI-generated version of my brother. I trust nothing anymore. I trust nothing.
The AI-generated version of Josh Jones would have a glorious mane of hair.
So you're saying I'm AI-generated? Is that what you're trying to say to me, Josh?
No, Jeff. There is no I in you at all.
I did not understand that.
I stands for intelligence, Jeff.
Oh, God. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Choke on your coffee. So I'm going to geek out about Linda Hamilton for a minute because this movie has one of my favorite scenes of all time. And I know you're going to probably hear this and be like, really, Jeff? That's one of your favorite scenes? The scene where she's escaping and she's starting to feel really good about herself because she's figured out a way out of this maximum security mental hospital. She's going to get back to her son and she hits the button for the elevator and out walks in slow motion the fucking Terminator. And she's running towards the door and she slips and she falls backwards and she has the most human reaction ever, which is sheer panic and terror. I don't think I've ever seen a performance as good as Linda Hamilton when it comes to just sheer panic and terror. It was such an amazing scene. It was so well crafted in terms of how they shot it, how they set it up. And then her acting of it was so good. And, her then running away from it, being saved by it, and then immediately realizing that, it is just a robot, it's been reprogrammed, and it's now there to help her, and now she, joins sides with it. All of that happens within, 15 seconds, and it was perfect. It was perfectly acted. She was incredible. And it's a shame to me that, I don't think in general she was considered all that great of an actress, so she didn't go on to do much else. But wow, I mean, that scene was just so well done. It was so well done.
Linda Hamilton was set to be recast. I didn't know that. That role was set to be recast.
Yeah.
They wanted somebody who was tougher and buffer, and she said, "Fuck that."
Yeah,
and got
I will get
jacked,
tough and rough. Yeah,
and got jacked for that role and won it back. And I remember the story at the time. I remember our dad being really impressed with that story. Oh, he loved Linda Hamilton.
Oh, he did. He loved
and
he loved Linda Hamilton and Take My Breath Away from Top Gun. Those are his two favorite things. And making home gym equipment out of gold toe socks.
And storing coins in old prescription bottles.
And separating raspberries individually on freezing trays.
And for some reason, a Toyota Previa.
No, go fuck yourself. If I could go back in time and get that Toyota Previa now, I would take it. That was the perfect van. That was the best van that was ever made. I loved that Previa. It was a house on wheels, man. Anyway, go for it.
Sorry. She was great. And in the scene you're talking about, and in several points in the movie, she captured the feral ferocity that she needed to have to be the only person on Earth carrying the knowledge that she had.
Yeah, carrying that burden. Yeah, there's a great scene, and it sort of speaks to what we were talking about earlier with children of people who are, mentally ill, what the John Connor character really wanted. Yes, he was the savior, and I'm sure when the T-800 shows up, he realizes, oh crap, I'm probably going to be the savior. As soon as they escape that, Linda Hamilton's like, come here. And he thinks he's going to get a hug. And he doesn't. He just gets checked out by his mom to make sure that there's no injuries.
Right.
And all he wanted was a hug. And it's such a great scene. This movie was so well written. You just don't get scenes like that anymore. And then he cries and Arnold's like, what's wrong with your eyes? I'm not going to stop doing my Arnold impression. Something that I preach to my students all the time. And it's how a tiny detail can add a big, big thing to a movie. And these are the tiny things that you're looking for, because the more of those you can put in, the better your movie's going to be and the more that it really sings. So Linda Hamilton, in order to escape, has to beat the shit out of a guard. If he's just a rando guard, then we might feel a little bad about her beating the crap out of a guard. But if he comes in and licks her face, now when she beats that guard, we're like, go with God. Beat him as much as you want to. And so that element of adding that like lick of the face, one, it's again just a big fuck you to anybody that's in the medical profession, because people, might tend to think that that's normal behavior, and I hope that it's not. It was a tiny moment that made a big impact in the film. And those are the details that you're looking for as a writer. Somebody had to think about that. Somebody had to think of that idea and then to carry it out as a moment of revenge, where it could have just been like, okay, she escapes, hits a guard, and you're off. And it made the guard more than just a faceless guard. There's a lot of like Sylvester Stallone movies where, he like goes in to save somebody and just murders 40 people on his way. And it's like, we don't look at these people as human. They're just, they're just a body
props.
count.
Yeah.
There's props.
Yeah.
And James Cameron's not that kind of director. And he made this person not just a prop. He made him a villain. He made him very villainous with a tiny gesture. And it's those moments in film where, as a writer, those are the moments you have to look for in order to make a script as powerful as humanly possible.
That's a really good point. We're finishing watching the 3rd season of Reacher, and it's fabulous. My son's watching it with us. We're making fun of it. And, Reacher is a very black and white world. Bad people are bad. Reacher is good. Whatever Reacher does is good, including all the people he just murders. He just murders a bunch of people.
Right.
And so in the final episode of season 3, they have to have one of the truck drivers drive them back to the bad guy's compound. And I was thinking back, the only thing that I could see that makes him bad is he works for the bad guy. And then they even say, well, what are we going to do to make this guy not talk? And so the Neely character's like, I'll try to find some rope. Then you cut back to Reacher's just murdered this guy. And he literally says, we just couldn't find rope. It's like, that's the, what? So the only, what? Huh?
Well, Josh, as they say, if you want to make an omelet, you got to kill 10,000 to 20,000 people.
I don't think they say that, Jeff.
No, they said that in Star Wars. In Star Wars episode 4, they were like, we got to blow up the Death Star. Aren't there a lot of janitors on this thing? It doesn't matter. It's called the Death Star. Well, they didn't call the Death Star.
They didn't call it.
The people on the Death Star probably didn't call the Death Star.
It's the Imperial Space Station 2.
Right. One of the elements that like I look at when I look at movies is, where does it fit in the type? What type of movie is this? What kind of type of villain is it?
Sure.
And there's something interesting about the villain that is like, you can't stop it. It's an impending doom. And the Terminator is impending doom. And it gives us the feeling of impending doom. Stalker films sort of have the same sort of feeling. There's different types of villains. When you look at something like a zombie films are not actually about impending doom. They're about how we break down when the world around us breaks down. Because yes, these zombies are always coming for us, and it's this feeling of impending doom, but it always ends up being the people around us who are the biggest danger. But I love these movies like the Terminator, where it's like, this guy can't be destroyed, can't be stopped, he can't be reasoned with. They're just coming for you. And I just think that that's a really interesting and kind of rare villain type. But it makes it so incredibly frightening. And I remember as a kid watching this movie, and specifically when the foster mom stabs the dad through the head, and it's off camera, and then they like pull away to it, and he's just like been stabbed through the milk carton through the head, and then the thing just kind of slowly goes. It was like there was such a lack of any manner of caring there. It was just so brutal, and that scared the crap out of me.
Yes.
As a kid.
Yeah. Jeff, that's actually a really great allegory for delusions that we're talking about, and maybe a way for people to understand delusions for folks who don't have them. If you have a paranoid delusion that somebody, something is out to get you, that inevitability, the inability to stop them, that is ever present with you. It can't be reasoned away. You can't do anything to stop it until you take antipsychotic medication, and it's just coming. And you know it's coming. You know to your core that it is coming to get you. And everyone else can tell you it's not. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. And in fact, the more people protest and say, oh, no, it's not coming for you, the easier it is for that person to be enveloped into the delusional system. Like, well, you're trying to tell me they're not coming because you're part of it.
Yeah. And again, just going back to that Linda Hamilton scene where like she's trying to run away from the Terminator, and that tackle that they make on her is so great. It's just like a hip tackle, and then they're dragging her down, and she's like, you guys don't understand. Like, I've been trying to tell you, and there he is. We're all about to die. Her panic. Oh my God, it's so freaking good. It's so good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're paying attention to what's happening with Rachel Zegler and Snow White.
Yeah.
So we have approached a moment a long time ago, maybe a week ago, where the punishment no longer fits the crime for what Rachel Zegler did. And we just have got to stop hating on Rachel Zegler. And there's a number of points that I want to make about this. And the first is, we have just got to start practicing daily empathy, and people need to figure out why they're so hurt. Because we seem to be attracted to people who are shitting on other people and other people's failures, and we're reveling in other people's failures. And if we're going to stop that, if we're going to not do that, which I think everybody probably wants to do, we've got to get on top of what's in us that's making us want those things. And we have to start practicing daily empathy. So here's a couple of the elements where I'm just like, it doesn't make sense to me. One of the reasons why everybody's so mad at Rachel is because she was hating on the original. And the original is being changed so much. And she's, in her interview being like, we're not making this a love story. It's about empowerment. Guys, she didn't write the movie. Somebody else wrote the film. She wasn't in charge of writing the movie. So being mad at her for Disney making a different movie than the original Snow White has nothing to do with Rachel Zegler. You can be mad that it got changed. That's totally fine. But that wasn't Rachel Zegler's responsibility. People are mad that she was cast in the first place because she's not white, and Snow White was white as snow. Guys, she didn't cast herself either. She had nothing to do with casting herself. And let's be honest, the farther back you go in history, the more likely something is to be problematic. The fairest one of all, this was all about beauty, and beauty means as white as possible. That's a little problematic.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand all this outrage. Also, I don't think you're allowed to be angry about recasting the color of somebody's skin for a character if you simultaneously have a white Jesus. If you're willing to recast Jesus as a white guy, then I don't want to hear any complaints about recasting Snow White as a person of color.
Jeff. Jeff. You're going big. You're going big this week.
Yeah. One of the things she said after the election, she said, fuck Trump, and I hope that Trump and his supporters find no peace. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with saying that. And I think that if you are a celebrity, you shouldn't do stuff like that. There are ways to get your point across and to say something with empathy that doesn't start with fuck. So that's not my thing. And sure, I disagree with that. But I also disagree with hypocrisy. And if you ever said, let's go, Brandon, then you can just shut the fuck up about her saying, fuck Donald Trump. Robert De Niro has basically said that a couple times. Nobody's canceling Robert De Niro. Nobody's hating on him for this. I wonder what the difference is between Robert De Niro and a 22-year-old or 23-year-old person of color girl. I wonder what the difference is. I wonder why we're okay with one and not okay with the other. So no more hypocrisy. Another thing I take issue with is there's an entire industry that is dedicated to talking shit about people. It's the primary driver of social content and about content creators. A lot of them are like middle-aged white men who it's their entire job is to just crap on people and to just dunk on people. I don't know why you're proud of yourself for having that job. And I don't want to be a critical podcast. That's not what we're here for. And I understand the hypocrisy right now where I'm criticizing the criticizers. But people are just looking for an opportunity to jump on someone who makes a mistake. This is a 23-year-old kid, and she's doing her best, and she's going to make some mistakes. What value do you bring to the conversation to just crap on this person?
Unfortunately, quite a bit, it seems, Jeff. Empathy doesn't seem like it sells.
I understand that, but
Right
this
now.
is
No,
what we're doing, is we're trying to remind people
I'm hearing
empathy
you.
is the way. And the last point is just she's a child. She's a kid. You know, she was cast in West Side Story at 17, and I know that, like, when she's in her 20s, she's not a child anymore. She's a child. There is no part of me at 23 that would like it to be judged. I was making some pretty tough choices, saying some pretty stupid things when I was 23. This is her second film. She does not know what she's doing yet. And so to have any matter of a lack of empathy, people have called her a brat. People have called her an asshole. Megyn Kelly just straight up called her an asshole. And again, this faux outrage at her being this like person that isn't perfect in your mind when your idol is Donald Trump, you know, makes absolutely no sense. And like, there are people in my circle who are Trump supporters. I'm not trying to brandish all Trump supporters with the same brush. I am saying, though, that if you're okay with Trump, you also have to be okay with people on the left saying things you don't like. Otherwise, you're just a hypocrite. And stop being so fucking sensitive. People are constantly complaining about the leftist snowflakes. Christ on a cracker, the people upset about Rachel Zegler are fucking soft. They're just soft.
I could not agree with your points about empathy more. I don't know Rachel Zegler.
I don't know her either. I don't know her either.
I do know that from the moment she got cast, people were upset about Snow White. And I mean, apparently Snow White is the greatest movie of all time, just like the Bible. I don't understand it. I don't understand the need to be angry about something that is inconsequential when there were so many consequential things to be paying attention to.
Right.
I don't get that. Jeff, I heard that they might recast Chewbacca as a polar Wookiee. I am very upset.
You should be happy because he's white now.
Really mad. I had the most heartwarming moment on my trip back from LA. I was in the boarding area, and this woman sat down across from me, smiled at me, and then she proceeded to silently sob. And I saw several people kind of nudge away from her, lean away from her. I myself hadn't yet approached her to try to comfort her. And out of nowhere, Bob's this young person with, short hair and just say, "Are you okay? I noticed you." And they strike up a wonderful conversation. She was comforted. It just so happened that I got to sit in between the two of those people on the flight, and we had a wonderful conversation, and I got an insight into, 16-year-old Canadian's mind and 30-something-year-old American's mind about what's going on, and one of them identified as neurodivergent, and we just talked about empathy and hope, and it was wonderful. It made me think, you know what, this is exactly what Jeff is saying we need to do. Yeah. We need to talk more. We need to get outside our bubbles, outside our echo chambers. So if you're out there listening, Carly and Romeo, just thanks for bringing some hope into the world, and we all have to do that. And don't do the things that Jeff is railing against today.
I know. I'm feeling spicy today. But you know what happened there, Josh, is you met people in person. Not online. You met people in person. And I think that's, one of the things we talk about a lot is you got to get offline. You got to hang out with real people. Those are the real interactions. You got to meet each day with empathy. And I do think that everybody needs to get in touch with, like, why are we so mad? What are our emotional issues that are getting in the way of us being happy and being happy for each other?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. that's it for us this week. We're going to talk about AI later in the week, which I'm very, very excited about.
We're also going to talk about how AI is going to affect your mental health.
Thank you, as always, for watching or listening to Cinemental and our coverage of Terminator 2. If you like this episode, please subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also watch clips of Cinemental on YouTube, where we'd love to hear what you'd like us to cover next. You can also watch my companion series, The One Thing, where I take a deeper dive into screenwriting, both available on the Large and in Charge channel on YouTube. Follow Dr. Joshua Jones, America's Psychiatrist, on Blue Sky. This has been a Large and in Charge production. For Josh Jones, I am Jeff Jones, and we will see you on Thursday.